Hello again. Here's just some quick pointers based off my own experience working with photogrammetry and photoscan. I've not worked with it for years on end, but at least I've picked up a few pointers which can spare you some trouble and hopefully make your experience easier. So one thing to do is choose something which is realistically doable. You want to choose an object which has a matte surface. That means not a glossy surface, because you want to avoid reflections. The software works in the sense that it tracks points in different angles. And if you have a lot of reflections going on, they're going to vary depending on what angle you shoot from, and therefore the software can't track reflective surfaces. So choose something with a matte surface. You ideally also want to choose something which has a lot of unique details which the software can recognize in different angles. If you were to choose something like that red wall behind me, it wouldn't work that well, because it can't tell one point from another point on a completely red wall. It all looks similar to the software. So choose something which has a lot of unique detail. I've tried shooting outdoors on cloudy day or in the shade, and that definitely has its set of challenges. But I've also tried shooting indoors, and what I found worked well when shooting indoors was to use a tripod for the camera and a remote trigger, because then shutter speed wasn't really an issue. I could choose whatever would fit. So I would place my object in a room which, when I closed the light, I would have uniformly lit light coming from a few windows and whatnot. You want it to be kind of like, uniform light from all angles to as much as possible. So I would close all the lights in the room. I had my camera on tripod with the remote trigger, and I would just set whatever shutter speed was needed to get a good shot. I could use a ISO value of 100 and whatnot. I think in my latest try I had 8 seconds shutter speed, and it wasn't really an issue. The images turned out really sharp and well, so that worked for me. Another idea or pointer is to shoot in the RAW format if you have that with your camera, because even though I had tried to make the conditions as good as possible for me to shoot in, the outdoor lighting would vary to some extent over time. So some of my shots were lighter and some were darker. And with the RAW format, I could still shift the exposure a bit to the left or right and not lose data. So that worked well for me. And last, I would say be prepared to try several times. I mean, I've managed to scan some successful objects, but I've also had a few failed attempts along the way as well. And every time I try to analyze to see what could have gone wrong. I mean, at least you can make a guess, right? So sometimes I would figure it was due to insufficient amount of images, or maybe my images, some of them were blurry, and maybe I hadn't covered that specific angle and I would get a hole in the model and whatnot. So just be prepared to try several times. But I hope my pointers work for you and that you manage to get something successful. So good luck with the competition. Cheers.